pleasure to be here today. So I've been asked today to be the keynote speaker because our company just recently completed the largest biotech deal in China. So we have done a licensing deal with a company called Shenzhen Hepalink. I've been asked to describe how we did this deal because deals in China between Chinese and Canadian companies are very difficult to do. So my first trip to China was this visa, and it was 1980 in May of 1980, 35 years ago. So I was in China before about half of the people in this room were born. And we did find our needle in a haystack, and I'll explain how we did it. Key steps were first to detail a study of the Chinese market as it is in the global setting. The second was to really understand the differences in financial impacts of the unique drug distribution system in China. The drugs are primarily dispensed via hospitals and not pharmacies, which results in larger distribution costs in China. The third step was to detail the product indication, our product indication potential, and competition in China. And fourth was to select the highest quality partner available. There are thousands of biotech firms existing in China. Our key was to find a good one with a global brand name. And the fifth was to execute a deal structure that actually works very well for both parties. I'll discuss some of those details in a minute. So first, our global setting, we look at China. It is soon to become the second largest market, pharmaceutical market in the world, ahead of Japan. And at the rate it's growing is one of the fastest growing in the world, even with this year's slowdowns. So of the pharmaceutical growth in the world, China is contributing 26%. And as you saw on the previous slide, some of the North American markets are actually declining. So this makes for a very healthy market for China, and there will be a lot of good investments in biotech coming out of China. This slide is meant to show the difference between a European deal or a US deal and a China deal. China deals post-patent expiration tend to hold large value remaining in the deal. This is important to know because instead of having a licensing deal that terminates at the patent expiration, we structured our deal to be 15 years from the first commercial sales, which will make a difference of several $100 million in the deal life. Now let's understand the differences of the financial impact, the unique distribution system in China. It's a difficult market, but it's substantial. Clinical trials are different, pricing is different, and mostly the hospital coverage is different. So the slow access to the Chinese market means you have to do more work. When you get your final approval, you're not done. You have provincial tenders to get, and then individual hospitals in those provincial settings. And then finally to the money. That's why we've started early, and we'll move this forward very fast with a local partner. So the potential, the product licensing is key. We looked at all of the different components and chose a few of the most important ones to work on. It's a complex market, and often people think it's too large or that you need a partner on the ground. And we chose to have a licensing partner on the ground with a management style very similar to ours. So next, we looked at the detailed product, our product, which is cardiovascular death in diabetic patients, a huge problem in China. In the Western Pacific and Southeast Asia markets, you have over 200 million diabetics. 13% of the Chinese budget for healthcare is spent on diabetes. In spite of that large number, a diabetic patient will still die of cardiovascular disease at a rate of 68%. And that is why our Chinese partner, Shenzhen Hepalink, was so attracted to our technology. Not only does China have a severe problem now, it is one of the fastest growing in the world, and largest number of diabetic patients as well. And we talked about the prevalence and the increase. This increase is kind of false. It's actually better reporting. but the increases are still 9% of the patients have diabetes. There's a huge room for improvement as China spends only a quarter as much dollars on diabetic development as in other countries. And just, I believe the last slide here, the rate is increasing quite a bit. I'll speed the presentation up a bit. The competitive market in China is merely glucose insulin, dominated by Novo Nordisk. But with all of these competitors, they have no impact on cardiovascular death, whereas RVX-208 does. So our fourth was to select the highest quality partner available. And we did that by detailing there's different ways we could have gone. We could have looked at public or VC-backed money, state-owned enterprises. We could have gone with smaller companies, but they're poorly financed. So we went with the ideal company with a strong Western-style management. They're strongly committed to us as a company. They're helping pay for our global financial or our global clinical trials. They have proven clinical experience. The last 3 heads of the FDA have all visited their plant and giving very warm regards to how well it's run. And proven sales growth in China and global. Their quarterly profits or their quarterly sales last quarter were up 150%. The company is Shenzhen Hepalink, and they make 70% of all the heparin in the world. They make the product for major pharmaceutical companies such as Novartis and Sanofi. This was very important to us selecting them as a global partner because they have a global brand name to protect. So then the deal was, how do you execute a deal? So both sides are comfortable moving forward. And we started with a valid issued patent in China, which is extremely difficult to get for a foreign company, very important for a licensing deal. Now, I won't make Ian read all of this. Basically, our deal structure was between Resverlogix and Shenzhen Hepalink, and it covers China, Macau, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. We receive a 6% royalty, which is lower than it would be in a global deal, but because of the distribution system in China, it is appropriate. The total potential in royalties will be somewhere between $400 and $800 million. And as I mentioned earlier, they will help pay for our global trial costs and will do full drug approval for us in China at their own cost. And that, I'd like to thank you for letting me be the keynote speaker. I hope you learned a little bit about addressing licensing deals in China. Thank you very much.